what that is? Discipline. Selfish.
No joke. We're legitimate.
Fucking do this? Then do it. Do it 100%, because I'm trying to.
We recognize that we are limitless.
You gotta be a champion to become a champion, right? Winning is a habit because we create habits that lead to good execution and success.
Welcome to episode 55 of The Coaches Show. I'm Coach Mike Bianca of San Diego Dynasty, and with me as always is my friend and co-host Ryan Gray, coach of Red Legion. Tonight, our guest is Dusty Cort, coach of Seattle Uprising. Dusty will talk with us about how Uprising went from a Tier 5 team to making Sunday and being considered one of the teams who could go deep in the final two NXL majors. Plus, we'll do a little game analysis with him as we break down Uprising's match against Baltimore Revo at World Cup. Tonight's episode is brought to you by Maxed Sportswear. For all your custom paintball goods, get Maxed. New Coaches Show apparel is available now. Be sure to contact them, too, about their team plans for the 2025 season. And BKI, the best knowledge in paintball. Sign up today at bkipaintball.com and be sure to use promo code COACHSHOW for 10% off. The next Coaches Clinic will be February 1st at the Paintball Combine. Clinic information will be released ASAP. Sign up link is in the description of the show. If you're watching us on Facebook, please send stars and help support the content. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, and leave comments. Ryan, some more moves and announcement this past week. What say you, my friend? What do you say we get into them?
This is just getting, it's like nonstop, dude. Nonstop. It's crazy. So the first thing I want to share just because it's near and dear to me, and Major League Paintball didn't post anything. He just did it on his own page. Mark Johnson of AC Diesel, owner and player, retires from playing in the U.S. and will coach AC Diesel next year. Mark has had a fantastic, 20-year-long career. Was blessed to be a part of that in a couple of different ways. So, hats off to him. He was very humble in the way that he made his announcement, but he will continue to play professional paintball in Europe. So, really excited too for Mark to be at the helm of AC Diesel. I made this comment kind of at the end of the season. I think Mark's already the leader. They already follow him. I think it's a wonderful thing for him to do. I think he'll do a great job. So really excited to see what he does with AC Diesel. News that broke today: Konstantin Fedorov has signed with Taunton FSU. I kind of knew that last week, but I wasn't allowed to share it yet. We did talk last week about Konstantin, about K-Fed leaving Houston Heat, but he has officially signed with Taunton FSU. Mike Arena moves from Impact and joins the Red Legion. Super excited. Had several conversations with Mikey already. Really excited to see what he's going to be able to do with Red Legion. Jerry Caro moves from free agency to the Ironman. Ethan Adams moves from Revo / Arsenal to NRG Elite, which we'll talk about that in a second. Nick Crescione, Joey and Robbie Altimore all moved from the Bears in a package deal to Chicago Aftershock. So again, I'm saying Bears there because they left before the change had actually occurred. Damian Vasquez moves from semi-pro team Newbies to NRG Elite. Bears has now rebranded as NRG Elite. So yet we have another rebrand that has occurred. That's the one I was talking about last week where I said one more is coming. That's the one more. And I want to clean up a little bit of the NYX story too. When we released the news last week of the rebrand, Bo Milo is not a part of this. Bo didn't buy the King spot, I think is what was said on the show. That's incorrect. Harris Hussein, who may or may not be the owner, there's still kind of a big question mark out there about whether or not he's the actual owner of ML Kings. he was an original player on NYX and is trying to rebrand. So nonetheless, that's kind of what happened there. But again, Bears now NRG Elite. So Al, who sold the NRG spot last year to Blast Camp, has now bought the Bears and is rebranding the team NRG Elite. So chaos, dude.
Yeah.
Chaos.
Yeah. Dogs
It's
and
all
cats
chaos.
living together, mass hysteria, right? It's just crazy.
Yeah. So give me your thoughts kind of on how you think the moves this week will impact, kind of each one of those groups and then kind of the league as a whole.
Well, okay. K-Fed brings a additional depth and capabilities to the Taunton FSU. I think a lot of people understand that, the Tauntons, great team in Europe, storied career, storied history. The American Paintball League these years, though, is a lot different than from when the Tauntons used to compete over here in the United States. So I think K-Fed adds some capability and shores up some possible issues on that front. Honestly, though, I feel Constantine's been a little hit or miss the last season or two. I think this type of shakeup is exactly what he's probably going to need. He's probably going to want to come out and just showcase, right? So a motivated K-Fed's probably a very dangerous thing. So K-Fed to the Tauntons, I think, is a big deal. That's going to add a certain high caliber weapon to that roster. Mike Urena from Impact, the Red Legion. My goodness, Urena's going to add a depth there. That's going to add a sixth body when you think about it from my perspective. That's going to give some people it just gives an additional attack. And it already was a vicious attack from Red Legion. So that's an impressive move right there. Mark Johnson, honestly, I think that was a brilliant move by Mark. I mean, so humble in his announcement, but honestly, when you look at what he was able to do at World Cup with Diesel, you got to take your hat off to it. And, but I understand he's probably also going to play in Europe. So he's going to get flicks in. He's going to be given some, so I'm happy for Mark on that front. I think it's just going to continue that momentum and that progress. So Jerry Caro moving back to Ironman, in my opinion, I mean, he's home. I think Jerry's coming home, right? And I think he's going to be in some comfort there. And I think if he's leveraged and used appropriately, he's upping his game every season. He's just going to continue to get better and thrive in that camp, I think. So I think Jerry's a great addition to the Ironman. Let's see, Ethan Adams. That's an interesting move to me. I think Ethan is one of those players that, he's versatile. He's going to bring an I've always already said that Revo, don't look past Revo's, roster last year and now Arsenal. I think Ethan's just going to make that roster that much deeper, right? There's an intelligence there that a lot of people need to understand, and he's going to add to that. So Nick, Joey, Robbie moved from the Bears to Aftershock. This is an interesting one to me. I mean, you're talking about brawlers, right? I mean, when you talk about their paintball style, brawlers, and I think that really fits in well with the Aftershock kind of concept, right? That let's punch them in the face and keep punching until we see red, right? Until they're bleeding or we can't swing anymore. So I think that's going to be an interesting ad. Damian getting back into the professional league. I think Damian's going to add obviously an attack to Energy Elite. I don't know what the rest of that roster is going to look like, right? I don't know what the core looks like right now, what the remaining core looks like. So I'm interested in understanding what the final form is going to look like for Energy Elite there. The rebrand, of course, is exciting at the same time, but I think it adds a little bit of confusion to those who are trying to keep track, who might be not so serious viewers of paintball. So that's my take, and I'll shut up right there.
Yeah, I agree and kind of disagree with K-Fed. I mean, we'll see, right? We'll see. I do think he wasn't utilized well on Houston Heat. It'll be interesting to see what he can do. I think with the group, I think Pascal will allow him to do what he does, So hopefully, right? If he's not, and they play in that style. The Tontons play in a more aggressive style. The way they played the World Cup, in my opinion, is not the way the Tontons play. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how that story plays out, whether or not K-Fed is going to be the K-Fed we've seen over the last 2 seasons, or he's going to be the K-Fed we saw 5 seasons ago.
Right.
If he's the K-Fed we saw 5 seasons ago, we're all in trouble, right? He's going to be a handful. He's going to be a handful.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think you made an interesting point when you were talking about when we were kind of doing an analysis of the teams a couple of shows ago. You know, K-Fed's that guy that you sit there and say, okay, go do K-Fed things. And then you build around that. Right. So I think what you're getting at is, let him off the leash. We might see that K-Fed from 5 seasons ago. And I think he's going to flourish in that camp, though, the way Pascal kind of does things. So I think,
agreed.
He'll flourish. So,
yeah, agreed. Right. Because it's more of a flow style of paintball where they want to get upfield quickly. They want to create chaos quickly. They shoot really well off the break. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how he fits into that group. I'm excited that he's still in the league because I think paintball's better with him in it than it is with him out of it. And I know there was some discussion about whether or not he would find a team that was willing to pay him what he wanted to get paid. So it'll be interesting with him. I want to touch on Thomas Taylor asked, it's a good question. I kind of touched on this last week, Thomas, and I'll say it again. Yeah, I do think it helps to keep the paintball intellectual engaged. It hurts, just as Mike mentioned a moment ago, if you're not a paintball intellectual, I think it hurts. It creates a lot of confusion. We have 20 teams in the professional league now. 30% of the league in 2025 is coming back under a different name. So that's really confusing, and I don't think that's good. I don't think it's good for branding for the sport. I don't think it's great for outside sponsors. And I think it creates a lot of confusion. It also creates a lot of instability in the team. And this part is total conjecture.
Right.
I think it creates a lot of instability in the groups. So, which is good and bad, right? It's good because we're gonna have even more parity next year. We should have had more parity. Now I think maybe the bottom 4 or 5 teams are going to be established pretty early in the season, which is unfortunate because I do think draws will become really important again. Whereas last year, I don't think, the draw really, everybody you played was going to be a tough game. I don't know if it's going to look the same this year. I'm a little sad about that. The Nick, Joey, Robbie move to Aftershock, I'm a little like you. I was a little bewildered as to why that move was made. And one of the big things I think with them and Chicago Aftershock is now they've got 10 players and they can really smash, right? They've got guys who will play really intense on both sides, right? So you can play 5-on-5 without having to play another team, which creates a really good offseason. Right. Damian going to NRG and Ethan going to NRG. Ethan going to NRG, I think, is really big. Damian's still a big question mark. His time in the pro league, he's not really been a factor, right? He's been known to get a lot of penalties, be really frustrated about play time, and if you're a young pro, those are 2 things you can't do. You can't get penalties, and you can't be upset when you don't play. Right? You got to be ready to understand your role when you come into the league. Now on a team like Energy Elite, where you're kind of in a rebuild, he might get a lot of opportunities to kind of show what he's worth. So we'll kind of see, again, kind of a big question mark there. Question mark.
Right.
So we'll see. I do think the top got better. The top teams did get better, with the exception, again, your new group on San Diego Dynasty. We'll see. There's kind of a big question mark there as to whether or not Dynasty is going to be the dynasty of old, meaning the last 2-year dynasty, or will they go back and it's kind of a rebuild? We're back to 4 or 5 years ago where they struggled, and so there's kind of a question mark there for sure.
It may be a question mark out amongst the paintball elite, totally, as we called them. It's not a question mark inside the dynasty camp.
Totally. Well, it can't be.
Yeah.
It can't be, right? Like, can't be. Obviously, that group is just getting better. I heard another move was made today to add more depth to the roster, which I'm sure will come out tomorrow. So we're not going to share that here.
Nope.
Yeah. So really exciting stuff going on. But again, I think the top 10 teams really did probably get better. And then the bottom 10, we'll see, right? There's still a big question mark. Speaking of confusion, has there been any movement on clarifying Major League Paintball versus NXL? There's a lot of questions that rolled out and seems like it never really changed anything. I don't know what you mean, Ben. So Major League Paintball is the governing body of the professional league, and the NXL is the divisional tournament. So if nobody ever explained that correctly, I apologize, but Major League Paintball is the professional league, and the NXL is the tournament promoter for all of the divisional paintball. Right. So that's the difference. Yeah.
To Doggy real quick. I'm not going to take that energy. I'm going to let them announce that on their own. But yes, the Canes are in good hands. We'll leave it at that.
Oh yeah. Good question.
Yep.
All right. Well, if nobody's got any more questions on that stuff, Ben, hopefully that answered your question. If it didn't, shoot me a message. I'll try to explain it better. But yeah, the Major League Paintball is the governing body of the professional league. And then the NXL is the divisional tournament. So hopefully that does help.
Dan Shelley, that's a great question. We have no idea. Do all of the Tontons come to the U.S. for 2 weeks, or does Marky go over there for layout weekends?
I know the answer.
There you go.
The answer to that one. So actually, Marky and Jero are going to be flying over to France to play in the French D1, which is basically the pro league in France. So D1 is their highest level. I think it's called Premier, but their Premier D1 is, so you have the Tontons, Carnage, Scalp, all kind of the French pro teams all play in that. There's actually some other really, really solid French teams that play in the pro league. Sounds like Marky and Gerald will be going over there to play with them so that they can create some cohesion together. But as far as like what the Tontons or even really the FSU European teams are going to look like, don't have any idea yet. No clue.
Yeah, it does seem like the efficient approach.
And the Tontons will be coming over for the layout weekend, I heard. And it is costly, but the guy who's paying those bills has deep pockets, so he'll be fine. He'll be fine.
Excellent.
Any other questions I'm missing? Gotcha. Ben, let's see what he says. Gotcha. There were talks of everything becoming Major League Paintball, definitely expanded. Oh, gotcha. Okay. I don't think everything will become. In fact, what I know from what I've been told by the powers that be is that is not what they're trying to do. Major League Paintball is just the governing body for the professional league, just like the NFL is the governing body for professional football. And then every other league is different, right? So really, when you think about the hierarchy of every sport, having Major League Paintball branded as the top makes perfect sense. So the professional league is Major League Paintball, and then all of the divisional stuff is all NXL. So, which again to me makes perfect sense. But I did get that information from the powers that be. So, okay,
awesome.
Well, let's shift gears. Let's talk about what we're talking about tonight.
Yeah,
Seattle Uprising. Right, Seattle Uprising kind of comes in last few events of the year, looking like a completely different team, changes their tempo, brings in Nate Schrader, Mark Miterman, which we'll talk about as well, and looked, not just good, looked dangerous. We had Joey Blute on the show right after Atlantic City who said, or that wasn't Atlantic City, right after Chicago said they were the most difficult team we played. The most difficult team we played. And said, probably if they hadn't have played us in the first match on Sunday, they barely won, by the way, said very clearly we probably would have played them for first and second. Probably would have played them for first and second. So we have Dusty Cort. Nope. Yeah.
Yes.
Dusty Cort. Yes. Too many courts. So Dusty Cort.
Dusty Cort.
Yeah, if you guys remember a few shows ago, We had another coach on that we thought was the head coach, and he made it really clear, I'm not really the head coach. Dusty's really the head coach. So you guys really need to get Dusty in here so he can tell you exactly how we do things. Number one, I want to say this before we get Dusty in. Uprising has a great system. They have great support. They have a fantastic system, and their culture is so good. The guys just stick around. They don't move teams. They all stay together. It's literally like it's like the Hurricanes, really. A bunch of friends who built their group together, continue to play together. Nate kind of wandered off and has now made his way back. So they have a really, really cool story. I said this, I think, even at the beginning and end of so that the end of 2023 and at the beginning of 2024, they're the team I hate to love because they play so well against the really good teams and then would get a bad penalty or make a bad mistake at the end of a game. If you go look at the scores, most of the time when Uprising loses, it's 1 point. It's 1 point. So really getting it together. So really excited to have Dusty on and chop it up about Seattle Uprising.
Bring him in.
Hey guys, what's up? Happy to be here.
Hey,
welcome.
Where are you at right now?
I am stashed away at our pro shop in the back where it's all closed, and I do my work at every day. So this is the DBS Pro Shop I'm working out of.
All right, where's that located?
That is going to be in Everett, Washington, which is about 35 minutes north of Seattle. So, and then of course, Uprising plays at our park, DBS Paintball. Out there, we have 2 basically pro-size NXL fields with scoreboards to run matches and keep everything rolling and all that stuff, and a webcast for the tournament series. So this is kind of the day-to-day operations.
What's the temperature there right now?
Probably 40 degrees and raining, or very close to 40 degrees.
Only 40. Okay, it's not as bad.
Only 40. It doesn't actually get too cold here. We get about that week of actual cold weather every year, but it stays 40 and wet for the next couple months. So
yeah, I was gonna say raining. Imagine that.
Imagine that.
Imagine raining around Seattle. Shocking.
Yep.
Shocking.
We deal with it. The guys still play most Sundays. We just kick it back a little bit later so that we don't have to deal with the frigid cold in the morning. When it's sunny at 11 a.m., it's not too hard to do drills and, get after it.
So is that the guys get after it every Sunday?
It's a mix and match. Like I'd say this off season, we're focusing a lot more on getting healthy. But a lot of our core guys still are playing as much as they can, which is most Sundays. Like I know Alex, Graham, Nate, they were all out last Sunday doing drills. At DBS, we are a little bit split where it's 6 or 7 guys in, our immediate area. And then a couple of the other guys are 3 or 4 hours away. So most of them are playing paintball as much as they can though.
Excellent.
Yep.
Well, tell us a little bit about your kind of history with Seattle Uprising, and then how you got into the coaching role.
So my history with these guys goes back to the beginning. When I was 12 years old, Nate Schrader was my first teammate with the DBS kids, and then we slowly picked up Brandon Olson pretty quick after that, and then basically jumped into playing national tournaments by the time we were around 14 years old. Nate and I were the same age. And then basically played through all the ranks with them, all the way up to semi-pro, PSP, even winning event when Tyler played with us. And then also playing pro 7-man on Vancouver Vendetta with pretty much all the same guys, which includes Nate Schrader, Alex Borromeo, Graham Arnold, Joel Eaton, Brandon Olson, all those guys. So basically played through the pro 7-man bracket for a couple of years with them. And then through that time frame, my family owned the paintball company. So I was at our indoor park all the time, practicing, training, kind of running a lot of that stuff for us with the help of my older brother, who was kind of a guiding light when we were young. And then basically, as that all kind of fell apart, MPPL kind of came to an end 2013, 2014. That's kind of when I got out of playing, bought a house, kind of did some real life stuff for 4 or 5 years. And then a couple of the lower divisional teams pulled me out of retirement to play and coach. So 2 years ago, I basically played every single point in PSP with the DBS factory team, playing D3, but coached and played, kind of ran the show with my older brother playing. And then in the last couple of years have been reintegrated with Uprising, where this year at the very beginning of the year was kind of the official start, where 2 years ago I was going to be involved, but ended up having a chance to play paintball with my older brother one more time for a season. So we kind of took that opportunity, played together. And then at the beginning of this year, there was some question whether I'd play or coach. And then with one of our coaches, Aaron Omerad, having a baby and having some other stuff come up, it became very clear which role I needed to step into. So that's kind of how I got here in the short version. So
yeah, it's awesome.
And I would think the thing I'll add to that real quick is at the beginning of the season, one of the probably best thing that's happened, and I want to give him like kind of all the praise possible, is Tyler Michaud is really good friends with my older brother. So they were kind of in contact in the offseason. It kind of got planted that I was going to help Uprising. And so some of that, he reached out to me and we kind of were able to get the Master Sensei involved. So, I don't necessarily consider myself the head coach. I'm probably more of a baseball style manager that, calls lines and helps everyone get organized and things like that, where Tyler's probably more of a coordinator that really helps the guys make their reads, get everything set up and organized. So that's probably the real structure of what we're doing.
I feel like the Uprising coaching staff is that Spider-Man meme where everyone's pointing like, I'm not the coach, he's the coach. So
yeah, because he said the exact opposite.
Yeah,
I'm not the head coach. It's really Dusty.
It just takes a village, right? So like, it's not one of us doing it. Like we also lean on our veteran players a ton, right? It's not us necessarily telling them what to do. It's building good reads and putting them in good situations and trying to figure out how we can maximize what we do, right? And kind of create instant advantages by giving our guys good choices to make. So, it's not us telling them what to do. It's us helping them put together templates and things like that. So that's kind of the base.
I see. So, yes. I mean, 3 heads are better than 1, right? So, I mean, it's important. So you've got a staff essentially where you're helping guide the ship.
Yeah, I would say so. And I think a lot of it's all of our individuals like kind of leaning on their strengths, right? And I'll include Lucas Sylvester. He actually lives in Florida. He does a lot of our stats for us and stuff. And he's really a guy that does a lot of the dirty work as far as managing stats and kind of keeping us on our P's and Q's with the video stuff and whatever else. But essentially between all of us kind of leaning on our strengths, with Tyler being kind of the engineer mind, Lucas doing data stuff, I'm probably more based on culture and kind of accountability and keeping the guys rolling in the right direction. We kind of bring that all together to, kind of make the most of what we do. So.
Well, if you're in charge of the culture, you're doing a great job.
I wouldn't say the whole thing, but I always lead it back to the old DBS style of play that we played growing up, which basically came from Tyler and my older brother, which is kind of the slowdown you're referring to, Ryan. But also
don't get into that yet.
Trying to play both ways, but essentially it's kind of leading, like that culture is what leads us to where we're at. So,
yeah. Understood.
So with the staff and Ryan, would that be a good segue into the, with the staff? And you recently made an announcement. So who makes roster decisions for Uprising?
We kind of have a management team, but we also include kind of our, I'll say OG players, right? Between Tyler, Jimmy, and I, we kind of stay on top of like the actual management part of it, communicating with people. Really, I think that post, it's more based on what our pro team is doing. We are kind of expanding our prospect list and trying to find some people for the pipeline, do some divisional stuff, find some of the local guys just to come play with us and kind of get a feel for how it goes. But at our core, I think a lot of it's based on the idea that like our ship's going in the right direction. Jimmy and Tyler and I kind of lead the way with leaning on a lot of our veteran players. We actually kind of count on them to be networked with the community a little bit too. Like Nate Schrader does a good job of knowing everybody and kind of being on tune with, some of the other guys outside of our circle. So really we lean on those guys a lot, but Jimmy, Tyler, and I kind of keep those conversations in-house. So hi, Violet. That's my niece. So
yeah, it's very sweet. I figured.
It is.
Yeah.
I love it.
So.
Well, coaching by committee is number one, it's really challenging, and you guys have done a really good job with it. It's always kind of the belief, in a top-down kind of system that you really need one voice doing the majority of kind of I don't want to say dictating, because that's not really the word I'm looking for, but really just the one voice, especially in the pit in between points. But I told you when we were in the green room, I had an opportunity to go back and watch several of your matches, and you can see you and Tyler are both talking to the players. Like you guys are both kind of giving information. Now I do see like he kind of has a clipboard, and it seems like you have a clipboard too a lot of times. And you guys are so I don't know if you guys are talking about like one play that you guys are going to put together, but you both know it and you have just split the work. So can you kind of describe how that works in the pit?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is we pre-build out some templates when it comes to rosters and lines and stuff. But generally what it is I end up being the one that calls lines based on Tyler's input, the player's input, what you see when you look people in the eyes, kind of getting a feel for, everything that we've done leading into the events. We kind of audit that with Tyler, the individual players, just to make sure they're all good to go and good to roll. And then we kind of get them together. I, at the beginning of the season, kind of joked that I actually had to wrangle 6 people because getting those 5 guys and Tyler all together at the same time, ready to roll, so they can all kind of talk through their process. And I would say when it comes to calling plays, like Tyler kind of leads the rodeo on that with input from myself and kind of the other guys also.
Sure.
But I think a lot of it, again, is based on we see our guys and we want them to be experts at what they do. So as a coach who's trying to plan for 5 different positions or tons and tons of different roles, we lean on them to actually help dictate what we do. And then I kind of feel that our job's to create the weave of how it all overlaps and makes sense. So there's no blind spots, or we at least know our blind spots and things like that, so we can be ready to play. So.
Interesting.
Yeah. And you just said something I think is really important, is not only understanding where you're strong, but knowing when you create a play where you're weak. Like that's so important. So important. Like we have a hole here. Like we'll do this. I say this a lot. Like, hey, I don't mind doing this. We're going to have a problem here. Like, so if this happens, just know this is going to fall apart really fast. If somebody gets here, we're in trouble. Just FYI.
Yeah, and I think with that, like for us, I think one of the things we've really tried to implement over the last year, and the guys have already done it, but it's like reiterate, is our leadership language of like, hey, on the box, can we reiterate these things so that as they kind of come down the pipe, our guys aren't surprised by it. Or like, hey, when they're deep on the Doritos, we know what's going to happen. You know, these kind of things that allow us to adapt quickly and not be taken off guard. Like that comes from the players, you know, kind of having instilled in them to have that leadership language on the box, just make sure everyone's on the same page and we know how to adapt. So
in a way, the players are checking you, right? So you and Tyler are developing this, hey, this is what we want to do. This is what we think that we need to do based off our discussion, the two of us, during that last point. So we're going to make this adaptation. And then the players sit there and recognize the fact that, hey, okay, we know we've been through this template. We understand where the weakness is or where the hole is or where the advantage needs to be pressed. And so they make those audibles on the box.
Yeah, I think so. And I think a big part of it too is like one of the like new terminologies I'd like to use with it is trying to find ways like in the pro league where between scouting, things we can identify, we can create instant advantages, right? By quickly pulling our gun up and shooting a different spot by something we identified immediately, like we might give ourselves that quick advantage that gives us enough to kind of drag the teams to our style of play, right? So just different ways of kind of creating that quick advantage so that we can like kind of play the way that we would like to play. And then also knowing if we can't do that, like how can we put ourselves in situations where we aren't always playing behind the 8 ball if we miss that shot or whatever else. So
nice.
Yeah, big.
I think that's more of the theory of how we want to play it than just go tell people what to do, you know? So
theory in paintball. Love it. Yeah.
So when do you guys like, so obviously you mentioned at the beginning, Mike asked what the temperature was. So it's pretty cold, wet.
Mm-hmm.
So when do you guys like, when does your off season or your off season end? Like when will be the first time you guys will get together as a group?
So we have some like stuff going on January 12th. Like one of the teams that we play with all the time, the BTA Butchers, is Map, Chim, and Mikey Lou. They've kind of become our practice squad. My brother Danny also plays with them. They're like the best guys we can go to swords with just because they're super experienced and, you know, can give us great looks. We'll probably end up playing with them that day. And one of the things about them is they actually own a butcher shop. And so a lot of time Map will cook food for us afterwards, make like the most delicious stuff. So June 12th, we'll end up playing with some of our prospects, our guys, and them, do a cookout afterwards. We're also doing a divisional tryout that day in kind of a separate location or a separate field in that context. And then after that, we'll do a practice somewhere in California towards the end of January and try to get all the guys together. But a lot of it for us, again, is just kind of managing people. You know, as our guys get older, it's how do we get them healthy and ready to roll, keep them in shape, and then, you know, try to get the guys out to play as much as they possibly can in the meantime. So
doesn't,
you know,
sorry, doesn't Map own a restaurant?
No, Map actually has a different job. He is the manager of a butcher shop owned by a gentleman named Evan. It's called Blue Max Meats. It is like south side of Seattle. So Map took over managing there a couple years ago, and they basically sponsor the BTA Butchers. And they are a WCPPL premier team. I think they won an event last year also.
I didn't even know Mikey Lou was playing paintball again. So they were both on the Naughty Dogs when I coached the Naughty Dogs in 2006.
Yep. Like, honestly, they're great guys. Like, we're so lucky to have them up here because there's just certain times when we're practicing, you can look over, and between those two and my brother, you have like 100 years of tournament experience shooting back at you, which like, it's just hard to, you know, imitate that, especially with guys that care about you getting a good outcome, you know? So
totally. Yeah. That's awesome.
So question. So you're going to have this January 12th. I think you mentioned in the green room that you guys are having weekly Zoom calls as well, right?
Yeah, we do that all year.
Yeah,
So.
do that all year. So my question, in if you can't answer, that's fine. But what's like a normal agenda for a Zoom call during the off season every week, or even during the on season? What's a normal agenda for something like that? What are you talking about? Focusing on?
Yeah, I think the whole thing is for a lot of the guys, it's more just a quick check-in, right? It keeps us all tuned in. It gives us a chance just to get together. Sometimes they're short, sometimes they're longer. And then to be frank, we don't actually do it every single week because obviously life gets in the way sometimes. But, most weeks we're pretty good about it. But like in the off season, for instance, the ones that we've done have been talking through, some of the sponsorship opportunities, some of the, team-based decisions with some of that stuff, because we're a little more player-based with our management group than probably any other team, right? Like a lot of it's based on our core guys that have been putting into this for a very long time. Like they're all smart dudes. They all have opinions on all this stuff. We want to kind of cater some of it to them. There's also times where we'll review matches. We recently reviewed our, Impact match on Sunday. That kind of stuff with the guys, talk through the different situations, times where we think we should have played it different, times where, we might have missed an adaptation or a read that would have given us a better advantage, that kind of stuff, just so we can identify and go back. And yeah, I mean, that's probably the main focus. And then really it's just kind of keeping tuned in with the guys, whether it's talking about the developmental program we're working on, or essentially talking through, again, sponsorship opportunities, times that we want to practice and play, basically any of that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah.
I don't want to go too far off on a tangent, but that's the second or third time you've mentioned the developmental program. Do you want to talk about that a little bit to everyone?
I'd love to. So one of the things that I'm like putting together is basically we have it's a developmental Discord, and a lot of it's based on kind of the content myself and some of the other pro guys are putting together, but we're basically offering it for free to any of the DBS teams to just be a part of it. So there's a spot for us to kind of review layouts and do a lot of the kind of in-house coaching stuff where we want to be able to give these guys kind of our deeper theory. And again, a big part of it's just creating guys that know our style of play. Like we can teach people to play paintball, but we have to get them the language, the lingo, the systems before we can teach them really how to play our exact style of paintball. So it's kind of starting there and kind of rolling with it. There'll likely be like a D3 WCPL team. There's a good chance we'll have a premier team that's some mix of some of the pro guys and some of the upper tier prospects, that kind of stuff. So it's all coming down basically after the new year is when that's going to be rolling. So
great idea.
Nice.
Great idea.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah. The WCPPL, USXBL, I think is adding Premier next year. MVPS, I think in Florida is now added a Premier where they're going to allow a pro or two as long as they're below a certain rank. All the leagues starting to do that is so good for paintball. And it's so good for like young pros to be able to go to a team that they can be the man on.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's so important for young pros to be able to, because it sharpens the right part of the brain, right? Like they getting to be a leader, helping a young group create plays, being mindful about the process that they have to go through to help that group just makes them so much better when they come back to the group, to the pro group. And in the understanding, like when a coach is trying to get them to do a certain thing or another player has a great idea about something and the execution of that, it's just so important. And I love that all these leagues are beginning to do that. It's so helpful. And as coaches, it creates another great opportunity for us too, to get time with them in a competitive environment, right? Whereas it's not like the 2 weeks before and then we get the layout and then you don't see them again for a few weeks. Being able to get into a WCPPL or again, USXBL or MVPS, that's awesome. It's awesome.
Well, and to add on to that, I think for us, like the biggest value is going to be being able to kind of see some of our prospects develop in real time, right? You go to a pro tournament, if you want to play close, short matches, you just don't have very many spins, right? You don't have enough opportunities to get guys on the field in real life playing experience. And then we'll probably end up flipping roles. I may end up playing in that just because I do enjoy playing a lot and want to participate also, make Nate coach or one of those other guys. So flip roles and kind of see how it all plays out. But really it's about kind of the developmental of the whole program is the idea behind that, and getting kind of some of our local guys that have worked up the food chain some opportunities to play with the guys that know what's up and can really kind of show them the path. So echoing that same sentiment.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Ryan's taking his notes. I usually take them while you're talking.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm so like, if I ever looked away when somebody was talking, my dad would smack me. But, yeah, I have this like I gotta pay attention while you're talking, and then when I feel like your thought is coming to an end, then I go over and write it down because I'm afraid I'm gonna get smacked. You know what I mean?
But
so
the world's changed with all this technology. So
I mean,
I
I'm
love
the
it.
same way with my kids. If I'm talking to them and they look down at their phone, we're gonna have a problem.
Oh yeah. Oh no, I'll take the phone and throw it out the window. So.
Totally. Yeah. So, well, let's kind of get into the 2024 season. So you guys come in kind of still looking like you did really in 2023 at a 16th place, 18th place, which is kind of where we were familiar with seeing Uprising, finish over the last few last few years. And again, not like you guys never lose bad. You guys would be right there in a lot of games, and it would be a big penalty, or a player would make kind of a bad mental mistake. The other thing is you guys would play with this like kind of relentless aggression all the time, and there was never a tempo change throughout the match, where I felt like sometimes you guys were in control of a match and a tempo change would have been a really, really good idea, but you guys kept playing with this kind of relentless aggression. And sometimes that would cost you, because you do see teams, and Red Legion, of course, is on the other side of this. They play with relentless aggression and don't get penalties, right? But a lot of teams who do play with that really high up-tempo style do end up getting a lot of penalties. So it was interesting when I saw kind of the change you guys made. So Nate Schrader comes back. You guys pick up Mark Miterman, who, by the way, played so well in his first event as a pro. I wish he was there all year, because he would have, in my opinion, clear vote for Rookie of the Year, right? Clear vote 100%. For Rookie of the Year. Had some awesome bonehead moments too, but had way more really, really good moments, right? Like some of the mistakes he made, you're like, yeah, of course he did. That's a mistake you're going to make some, right? Mm-hmm. One of the biggest things I noticed, though, again, even from watching the matches I watched today, was you guys had a significant change in tempo. So the only time I really saw you guys get up tempo was when you had to, right? Like you guys really seemed like you pulled the reins back and really wanted to play a more controlled style of play, which was interesting too, because the last two layouts you could do that, right? Earlier in the year, if you would have tried to slow those things down, it wasn't really a good way to do it, right? Yeah, wasn't really a good way to do it. They were high tempo, high tempo, high tempo. Mm-hmm. The last two layouts we played, you could slow it down, right? And I noticed you guys did a really good job. And we get into the match and we watch this first point, everybody will understand what I'm talking about. You guys did a really good job understanding the crosses and putting yourselves in a position where you could really slow the tempo down. One, what was the reason for the tempo change? And then two, is it what you want? Like, did you get out of it what you wanted?
So I think the first part of this is like realizing one of our advantages we have is the consistency of our core guys, right? So by allowing, I'll add Nate in this group also, because he is, kind of one of our core guys also. But between Nate, Alex Borromeo, Graham Arnold, Joel Eaton, Brandon Olson, we have a bunch of guys that are great friends that can communicate quickly on the fly, that have, kind of these very unique relationships. Tyler kind of jokes that like we don't really need to do any more team bonding, right? We just need to practice more, right? That kind of thing. And a lot of it is just a situation of realizing that playing a more communicative, information-based style gives us a bigger advantage because of that continuity, right? So that's kind of the base of it. And I think the next part of it is pro paintball at times has kind of turned into this: the first team to take the big risk loses often, right? So if you're not the first team to kind of take that first big swing, sometimes you start out with that generic advantage, and it does play into our strength of being able to shoot people off the break, right? Us being able to shoot people off the break, force the other team to make a mistake, allows us to kind of dictate the full pace of the game top to bottom. It's an NFL team that wants to run the ball the whole time, and if you can't stop them, then you're going to have a really, really hard day, and there's no real chance for you to win, right? I think that is the base of that style. So that I think is the main part of the switch. And then also realizing that like in some part of it too, it's also managing bodies. We're not the Red Legion. We'll probably have a hard time if we have to go play 15 points in a match, right? So by being able to kind of keep our horses fresher longer, we can get to better outcomes also. So I think that's kind of the two pieces that tie together to kind of dictate the style we want to play. But I do want to add to that, like, I think we can actually play both ways. I think a big part of what we do is realizing that, like, we want to be a kind of steamroller, as Tyler always says, with kind of constant pressure that allows it so that, hey, when those opportunities pop, we get to go win the game. And that part of our core culture is that we go for it, right? It's not this, like, we hide, we don't want to win, we're playing scared. It's, we give ourselves the best advantages and we go for it when it's time. So I think that is kind of one of the things I want to reiterate. It's not just play slow, it's play slow, but play to an advantage and go for it. So
excellent. You're speaking my language. I know exactly.
I was going to say, you sound like Coach Bianca right now.
I'm a little familiar, but
yeah, you sound like Coach Bianca. And I'm glad you brought up being able to play in both styles, because when we get into the match, I think there's a couple of times you guys should have gone up tempo, right? Like a couple, like just, I think the teams like you guys now that you've shown, like we talked about this with Infamous too. They were a team that really was kind of famous for being really ballistic, right? Really playing at a very high tempo. And then last year at World Cup came out and played a very, very slow, methodical, intelligent style of paintball that we hadn't really seen much from Infamous before. And really showing, like, if you can play both ways and you understand when it's time to make those tempo changes, not only do you put yourself in a position to do better, but you really you put yourself in a position to win tournaments, right? Like the paintball you just described, Dusty, that's tournament winning paintball. That's Tampa Bay Damage and Impact and the Hurricanes and really even Dynasty, right? Who can play at a high tempo and then literally come out and play a 7-minute point with you. That's X Factor, right? Yep. Like those teams that really play both tempos really well and understand when it's time to do each thing, that's how you win tournaments, right? And I think my point was that it looked like you guys were really stuck in this slow tempo, right? Where it was like players, it seemed like sometimes the players didn't know when it was time to change, right? Like, do we change now or do we keep playing this slow tempo, right? Which, I don't think is a problem, because I think it's something that's really easily fixed, right? Sure. Just understanding situations and putting yourselves in uncomfortable positions a lot. I think it's something you guys will have an opportunity, and I'm sure you guys have talked about it in your meetings, right? Like, this is probably where we should have gone back to the high tempo, right? When we see the one guy breaking out on the snake side, let's shift a gun that way, shoot him, and you guys will show it in the film. You guys do this really well, where you see the one guy breaking out and the one guy comes up, you shoot the guy off and you guys immediately take advantage, right? Immediately take advantage, and the tempo goes up quickly. So is that what, like, did you intentionally slow it down, and then did you get, like, was the outcome what you expected?
I think the first part of the slowing it down just becomes identifying that you have to, like, lock in your advantages first, right? Before you try to go do anything crazy and win the game, like, you have to lock in that advantage, right? Whether it's a trap side or whatever else, it can't be focused on, hey, we shot someone, now everyone go do something, right? It has to be based on let's shoot a guy, hold the trap, make sure it's established, work down the field as a group, and not really doing any of it by yourself, right? I think that's where the pace, like, kind of has to step back, get to a good reset. And then admittedly, there's at times where, like, we're still trying to get all the guys up to speed on how to play both ways correctly, right? Like, we're an ever developing team. We have a lot of guys we're developing. And so I think part of that is really kind of with all of those guys, like even some of the experienced guys, like myself included, it's kind of watching those film back and just identifying, like, hey, here's our moment where if we would have sent it down this side, we give ourselves a chance, right? Whether it's in down body situations or, kind of that up body, hey, here's our moment where we probably should have went for it to win the game, right? And I think one of the things that we, again, I'll say it again, as a culture, we want to preach, like, we want the guys to go for it when it's time, right? And we don't want to punish them for that. It's like, hey, when the moment strikes, go win the game, please. But again, I think a lot of it's based on holding our advantages first, so you don't give it back, let people back in the game, that kind of thing. And that can be from a point-to-point basis or kind of the micro games in the middle of the point also. So,
yeah, but that comes down to preparation, right? That's all we can, coaches, we love to do this. I'm really guilty of this, right? We talk about the fact that, hey, when it comes down to it, we want you to be able to shift that gear and go win the point. Okay, how? based off that, situation, that scenario, that layout, whatever. Okay, how? And that's when you reverse engineer and back it up. And that's where you have that preparation, right? That week leading up, and you understand that, okay, we talk about situationals, we talk about first shots, we talk about this advantage. Hey, if we attack the weakness over here when we see it, and this is how we attack the weakness. It's not just go, it's this has to be this, and then this tandem line has to be here, and now we bully this gun, and then we blow through. So it's, everyone talks about if A, then B paintball, but do they really understand it? And that's one of the most difficult things to do as a coach, is to ensure that everybody's on that same page, and you show them that progress on, here's the weakness. This is what this should look like. Consistently, it should look like this. And this is, we talked about earlier, we used the word adaptation earlier. And I love the fact that you use that word. It's one of my favorite words. And it's got to be that adaptation. And once you come into that and you've seen this and you've done all this work in preparation, once you see the weakness and you attack the weakness to go win the point, and then all of a sudden there's that one thing that you didn't think about, or you didn't prepare for, you didn't see. And that's where the adaptation comes in, right? And that's when the player has to go out there and just execute and do his thing. So I had to throw that point out there, because we get so, I do it terribly when I talk to teams, or when I'm doing a clinic, or when I'm trying to explain something. We're up here at this 50,000 foot view. But those of you listening to the coaches show, those of you divisional coaches, need to understand, yes, you're up here at the 50,000 foot view, but now you've got to explain it down here at the 2 foot view, right? And I don't know if I'm making sense. Maybe I'm just babbling, but it's something that I've really been working on personally, on being able to understand, explain that vision. It's so important to have that vision. And I think, Ryan, you've made an excellent point here. It's obvious that Uprising, Dusty, that you guys came in there and said, at the beginning of the season, hey, this isn't work. We need to take a different approach to this. We need to be able to shift gears. We need to understand this. And it looks like you really sold it to the team. The team bought in, and they came out and they executed for you.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think a big part of it too is it's just one step at a time, right? Like the beginning of the year, we had probably what I'd consider big lack and holes in the roster, more from just like the neglect of just having a core group of guys who are making it work without really having the leadership of Jimmy, or like the paintball connections that Tyler and I have in some sense. So I think even that kind of year-long progression really kind of started with just the idea of Tyler and I kind of coming in. I know for me, I had some low-hanging fruit for all the guys on an individual basis. I'm not going to get into it, but, for each guy, it's like, hey, here's your one thing that if you were, working on, improving on, we're going to get better outcomes. And then we just kind of started there. And then getting Tyler involved in his ability to use kind of some of the display programs and AutoCAD and stuff, so we can do some better situations and some better drops and stuff like that, has really kind of allowed us to get our group think to a higher level faster, right? I think that's kind of the big takeaway, is that the group think now, our process has gotten to a point where we can kind of get to that quicker, right? So
nice. You made a statement too about, and this is something I've complained about Uprising for the last couple of years, is it always looked like it was guys just individually doing their thing, especially when things would fall apart. They'd lose a couple guys off the break, and then you would see a lot of individual things occurring, man. And that's what I thought you were going to say. When we slowed things down, the idea was to get more connectivity, right? You did kind of say it in, hey, we've got these core guys. We need to give them time to really connect with one another, communicate well, delineate through the process of the point as it develops, right? So if you can get them to continue to do that, and then know when to make those changes in tempo, man, you guys are going to be really dangerous. You're going to be really, because again, the reason the Uprising lost the majority of their games, in my opinion, was individual selfish play. That's it. Just one guy would make one stupid mistake and get a penalty. And a lot of times in a situation where he didn't need to do what he was doing, didn't need to go do it, had an opportunity to do it and just tried it, right? But it wasn't needed. If they would have given it another 10 seconds, you could have, with two guys, worked a guy out of a spot, and now you get to go win the game as a group. Man, making that change is massive. And obviously, the benefits began to show right away. You guys change your tempo, and then right away you make a Sunday, and then you follow it up making another Sunday. And I know it's always a heartbreaker to kind of lose in that first round of Sunday, but you went from being a team that hadn't made a Sunday in a couple of seasons to, bam, you make back-to-back. back to back.
For sure. One thing I'll add to that too is I think the thing that I'm probably most proud of, but I think we have the biggest kind of improvement on too, is at this point, the last 4 matches we've lost have all been by 1 point to Dynasty, Damage, and Impact. So, we're playing tight games with good teams.
Yeah.
I do think that there was also that big shift with Nate coming back. I think one of the characteristics Nate brings to the group is he is willing to go for it, right? And I think that's like one of the things is, again, we don't have to play fast. We don't have to do crazy stuff. But having kind of leaders in our, team in our room that say, hey, it's okay to go for it. And even Nate kind of reassuring to Mark and some of the new guys, like, hey, we want you to go for it. We're not going to penalize you for it. We want, when the moment calls, go, that kind of stuff. So it's been big for us.
Fast
Joey,
on the trigger there, Ryan.
Yeah, we mentioned that, buddy. We said, hey, we had Joey on the show right after Chicago, and he said you guys were the toughest game they played. So,
yeah.
Do you feel Nate was that catalyst for that shift?
It helps a lot. I think the big part is it's really Tyler brings a lot of that messaging anyway, but having players that believe in it, that show up, have been to an outside culture, kind of come back, get to reiterate kind of a lot of the things that Tyler has already tried to implement, kind of follows up with some of the accountability stuff we've already been on. It really does kind of help get everybody on board, right? Because a lot of this is just getting everybody rowing in the same direction, being willing to be stars in their own roles. That kind of thing where it's, hey, whether you're the pit pod guy or you're the star player, like, we just need you to be you and play to whatever the best version of that is. And we'll try to figure out how it all shakes together as coaches, right? So I definitely think Nate's a big part of kind of getting everybody to buy into the theory that we're already teaching and trying to roll with. So,
and I'm so glad you brought Nate up, because that was kind of the next place I was going to go is anybody who knows anything about paintball could see the impact that Nate was making on your team. And it was when it was time to go get something done, Nate just goes.
Yep.
And he just gets it done. We're going to see it even in this match. There's a critical point that kind of comes down. You guys shoot a guy off the break. They're in the right spots to hold the point, and Nate goes down and trades. And that's the move that needed to happen. Right. Nate just made it happen. The other player that you guys brought was Mike Miterman.
Yes.
And Mark Miterman, he was impactful right away. The one place I thought you guys were always a little bit weak was in the snake. It didn't seem like you guys had a dynamic snake player, right? That could play the high tempo, play the safety when needed. You guys always had guys that could get in there and do work, but they weren't nobody's game planning around that guy, right? Now teams have to kind of game plan around Mark a little bit. Like that, you got to kind of know where he is in there. You got to pay attention to what he's doing, because he is, for a young pro, he's pretty crafty, and we're going to see he does some really good things in this match, which we're going to jump into in just a second. But Mark was a great pickup. Where did he come from?
So first of all, Mark's been a godsend for us. Like, I think our biggest deficiency with Tyler and I coming into this whole thing was making sure we could find snake bodies. At one point we played Joel Eaton over there, which is very out of position. We're grateful he was able to kind of make the switch and, do what he could. But really, for us to be a top tier team, you have to have, 1 or 2 really legit snake guys. So Mark was actually playing with semi-pro team Ology. He wasn't getting very many spins, but he was just a local guy who always had a great attitude, always wanted to learn. You could tell he just really wanted to be part of it. And even now, like his kind of vibrant attitude and like cheerfulness while we play paintball, like definitely rubs off on some of the guys who have been beaten down over the years. A lot of
team
us.
Guy.
Yeah. Well, and it's just one of those things where it keeps everybody cheery, fits in everywhere with everybody on our group, kind of has this like really friendly demeanor about him in paintball that allows him to blend in. And he's just been a willing learner, right? I know Tyler's really taken him under his wing, and so has Nate, to really just make sure that we're kind of giving him the best platform to learn about what we do and kind of grow into the player that we hope he can be someday, so.
I always love hearing stories about players that are given a shot like that, right? They're given a shot and they come in, and then all of a sudden, boom, they exceed your expectations. And it's like rock and roll, baby. Here we go. So,
well, and actually the first time I talked to Mark about it was actually right after the Dallas event. I was in the airport at 9 p.m. on a Sunday, and he just came from, I'm not they placed in semi-pro, but he just came directly from the field, and he's completely muddy, top to bottom, still smiling, going to go give himself a sponge bath in the airport bathroom, So that was kind of the first conversation we had to plant the seed or whatnot. But it was one of those things where you can just tell the guy loves it, right? And what more do you want to do with people that love it and want to be there? So
nice.
It's gritty too.
Yeah.
That's gritty. It's awesome. Well, let's jump into this match. So I wanted to find one that I could that I thought kind of showcased a really fun game for you guys, number one, and fun for the fans. So I picked the Baltimore Revo game you guys played at the World Cup that comes down to an overtime, and it's really entertaining. So walk us through. So you guys have obviously had opportunities at this point to scout Revo. I think this was your third match, their third match. So you guys have a couple of matches worth of data. What are you guys looking for here?
I think the thing is we have a pretty good feel for how they want to play. They did some unique ghosting on the box on the Dorito side we were hyper aware of, and then even some big fills off of that. But I think a lot of it for us was more based on as long as we can kind of play our controlled version, we should be able to kind of take advantage of whatever the open spots are, specifically because we didn't feel like that they were going to be able to kind of beat us on the Dorito side specifically, which just made us feel like if we plugged the snake, we'd be able to kind of hold them off no matter what. And then again, just taking advantage of our opportunities. So.
And this is the setup I was talking about earlier, right? Being able to recognize this really quickly. Hey, there's only one guy going over here. One guy. We shoot that one guy and we can trap Cody Mikowski, we're going to have a field day.
Yep. And then the other thing I'll point out is Frank here on the other side of the box. That's actually who we had the best scout on, as we felt like we had a really good feel for kind of what he was going to do and kind of the difference kind of variations he was throwing at us. So
he was the dancer on that side, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's playing that space really well.
Yep. And then the big fill. I think the hardest thing about this snake side was just the context that once the break happened, you just couldn't really see the quick fills, right? Those back center guys could be shooting the gaps, but you just could never actually know whether or not they made that quick fill, which made it really hard to trap consistently.
Now, did you lose the break on this one? Was it a 54 on the break, or did we make it out all alive, 5 alive?
They each shot one. They shot the snake corner, and Revo shot their interior snake guy. So not Mark going out first. It was like the back center guy on the snake side, who would have been the second guy coming out.
Yeah, Nate got shot going into that Aztec on the snake side off the break.
There you go. But he was going to go in there with Mark?
I believe he was ghosting and then going to try to jump over there. I think Mark was supposed to dive and get up real quick and dive again, but may have gotten held up. So I think one of the things we figured out by watching some of the other teams was that if you didn't just run through the snake gap off the break, you actually had a higher chance of making it sometimes.
Sure.
Dive quickly, get up and go again, get off schedule.
Yeah, the little double dive.
Off schedule at the pro level is important.
Yeah, so talk to me about this. The two guys in the mini win.
Yeah, I think what it really became was we just knew the back center was the first guy we wanted to shoot on the other team. And so flipping that perspective was, hey, what do we do to keep this guy safe? And then we knew how valuable the inside route on the snake player was. If you got 2 snake guys on the wire, it basically left open we called the Slayer route, which was tower to tower, to go shoot the snake guys. And so by being in that wall, it allowed us to, at least early in the game, protect the inside route also, and then not have a 5th body problem of being stuck in the back center. I think being reflective, we probably would have played a little bit differently as far as working into one of the wedges to help the Dorito guy get wide. But that was the thinking initially, was just getting him out of the back center, protecting the inside of the snake route. So,
yeah. I kind of like that you guys void the middle of the field. I think you're playing the field right here.
Yeah.
If you didn't have to have somebody up here, especially with this guy back here, you don't want anybody up here because this guy just peels them.
Yeah, and I think that was our initial thinking, was that, once you kind of have that first break, if you don't have a big advantage on one side, like playing the middle, if you can't do it trickily or with the trap on the Dorito side, becomes a little bit tough.
Yeah, totally. And Revo does this well. I mean, they've got 2-man operations on both sides.
They're very solid. Like, I feel like they're a team that matches up really well with us. They can play a really smart style. They have athletic guys that take around. So they're definitely a really, really solid team to play against. You can tell that they're going to give pretty much any of the teams a good match.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. They play well against everybody.
Yeah.
How long did this first point go? If I remember this being
it goes a long time. I'm going to probably.
I think 10 minutes. Like I think it gets to about 4:30. So.
Wow. That's right.
Yeah, I mean, already I think Frank has 1 pod on his back right now. We're 3.5 minutes in. I think Frank has 1 pod. I think Cody Mikowski only has 2.
Yeah, but what was your average time per point when you were preparing for this?
We had some that dragged out quite a bit. Like I'd probably say 5 minutes or so, maybe on average. Probably a little less than that. But I also think that at practice we go for it a little bit more at times, right? Where at the event it's more kind of find that exact pacing. I also think that from our perspective, like we basically played Sunday paintball from start to finish. Like I don't think we thought we had enough leeway to do anything other than try to play Sunday style paintball throughout the whole event. So
this is kind of what I was talking about with Mark. Like that retreat was really smart.
Yes. Yeah. Is this the bait? This is where he baits him because he's going to come out to try and get the 2 behind Meter, right? Meterman. Or is it reversed?
Meterman goes back here to the knuckle behind him, and then he tries to go through and gets picked up by the back player.
All right. Is it Meterman or Miterman?
Miterman.
Okay.
Miterman.
Making sure.
Yep.
I'm just spelling it phonetically now.
Yeah, this is where it gets
Yeah, this is where it starts dragging, right?
yeah. It's a little boring.
Because essentially the head of your snake's on a cross, right? And he's holding up the D side advancement. These two are
Yeah,
down
at
to
this point he can't really hold up anything on the D side because of the
No, he
because of the
can't. But that's why he's looking that way. Would be my guess. And so, Cody just sitting there doing his thing, but the 2 snake players are at a dead match. They're both expecting the other to come. You have the mini wall there on the cross. The tower over there, the Hertz tower, is trying to keep everybody honest. Revo gets clever here. It's San Tommaso.
No, it's Sean Saucedo.
Okay, Sean. Yeah. So he just pulled back now. Miterman just pulled back to the cake, correct?
Yep. Because he's looking for Sean here.
Well, I think one of our theories on this field was as long as we were like on the Dorito tape, we actually didn't mind if they came to our side because of the way the snake was set up. Like that guy really couldn't get any kills as long as we knew he was there. And if anything, his life became very tough as he got into those Doritos on your side.
And this is a space where I feel like Elliott could have come to the edge here. And he's got an opportunity. Yeah, that's what I was saying. I think Mark moving back was great. He's just kind of waiting on that. And now he jumps out of it, moves up, right? Puts himself out of danger. Smart move.
I think we missed it, but Elliott, their snake guy came down and got shot in that sequence too. They say it, but you don't see it.
He did. Yeah. So we were in a 3-on-3, right? Or sorry, a 4-on-3. We lose our tower player. Now it's a 3-on-3.
It's basically an island drill. Because, it is an island drill. You've got 2 snake side, 1 Dorito side. They've got 1 snake side and 2 Dorito side.
Yeah, it takes a little longer to get into kind of the processing on it, but I do think that they kind of go about it the correct way. I'm not going to spoil it here.
We still have 2 more minutes to figure it out.
Might be less. Might be like a minute, actually.
Yeah. Long.
I think it also speaks to both teams knowing the stakes of this game, right? Where I think we're both pretty much in a situation where if you lose this one, you're probably not going to move on.
Right.
So.
So Frank and Saucedo are practically next to each other. Trying to shoot.
John's still got enough paint to shoot bounce shots.
Yeah, exactly. Incredible. Cody's trying to piece it together here. Miterman has decided to go offensive. Or at least take ground.
When I think Graham's actually telling him, like, hey, we got to go get this guy off the field in front of us. I think when you watch it, you can hear Graham telling him that.
Oh, and you guys got a minor.
Correct. Yeah. And so I think like one of the things that Pete Carroll, the Seahawks coach, always had and kind of mentioned in his book at one point was that if you play rookies and choose to start them, it's always going to cost you kind of 1 point, 1 game, whatever. And I feel like a lot of with Mark at this point is just kind of cleaning up some of those, we'll say, rookie mistakes, because if those go away, he's a superstar level player, right? And kind of a dominant player. And like in that exact instance of they run down, they don't pull the trigger and get the minor. We run down, we do pull the trigger and get the minor. And that's the difference in that point. So.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize you got I didn't realize you guys got a penalty in that point until just now. So. And then you were quick on the concede button there, I assume.
Yeah, I think the whole thing is once that game gets under 5 or 6 minutes, we don't have to worry about pacing anymore.
Nope. Okay.
Awesome. Well, you do. You got to worry about pacing the other way.
Yeah, but we're no longer in play it short mode. So.
All right. Charlie from Max right there. Shout out to Charlie.
Charles.
So you strike first, it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think one of our adaptions here was just making sure we took enough space on the Dorito side that we weren't going to get trapped up in that little wall, right? Or if we did, it was only going to be 1 guy instead of 2. So
you spread the back. It looked like you tried to spread the back 5 on the break, maybe get some guns up. It looks like it pays off because they went heavy Dorito, but kind of short snake.
Yep.
But now they're in the snake. Okay.
Yeah, and this is really, where he is in the middle looking snake way. I just didn't understand that a lot of times. That guy's he's not in the game forever.
Yeah, you're waiting for a guy to pop up in the 50 snake.
Just playing whack-a-mole, right?
Yeah.
It takes your gun out of the game for so long.
So you're playing whack-a-mole.
We did it on Scalp, and I kept telling Vince, like, I don't love it. But he was the head coach, and that's the call he made.
Yeah, I think the big value in the middle was being able to cut off that Dorito side if they didn't cross the gap outside of the big wall early. That was the big value. That was the big win. And then
but if you lost your snake guy, you're in trouble.
Yep, that's exactly it.
Ooh, shadow got him.
Yeah. Yep. So now you both are in the center. You're both in the snake.
Yeah, I think it's a 2-on-3 our advantage. So
shot
right
is
here,
nasty.
Mark does something really good. He basically creeps the inside of the snake and shoots that middle guy. And that's kind of the going for it thing, right? Where it's like, hey, be willing to make the move, go be willing to get that kill. And that really opens it up to be a 3-on-1 quick close.
Just crazy cool. That risk reward, right? And look at the swarm. Here it comes. Blood in the water. Love it. 1-1. Like 12 and a half minutes in. Love it.
Yeah, it's a tight one.
Yeah. But it was funny. As soon as you saw Meyerman drop the hammer on that guy, it's like everyone recognized it. It was like, we know where that last body is.
Yeah, one, I think it just speaks to the guys being on the same page, right?
Yeah.
You can't go into action that way if you don't have the information. And then I would tell you one of the problems that Uprising in the previous incarnation had was taking action without having the information, right? Where that's the, hey, we know what's up. We can go kind of make our reads and go.
Yeah.
Trust what we know.
Two cardinal rules, right? Not having the information or not taking a justified risk or dying with information.
Yep.
All right. Anyway,
Dying with information. That's the worst.
That's the worst.
So here's that setup again. Overloaded on the Dorito side.
Mm-hmm.
And we got the one guy out here with no dancer on this side. And I think this is the point you guys really take good advantage. Yep.
I know that
I thought he called that guy out.
Actually.
So the one body actually shoots your snake player. Abel gets in there, goes hyper aggressive because the best eyes on the entrance to the snake was that Aztec, that God bunker.
And the horn blows about right there. I think he shot Graham Phil in the corner. There was actually a talking penalty that we got on that play. So that was kind of the big
about those
blowing up.
Who got that one?
That was on Mark also. Lessons learned along the way, you know.
Nate's in the chat. That's a minor.
That's a minor, yeah. The hard part is, as the coach, I'm standing in the coaching box right next to it happening, and it's probably earned, you know.
Right.
Yeah. Those are my, like, when I'm standing behind and they don't know I'm standing there.
Yeah.
And then they come back in the pit and I walk in and they're like, I didn't even say anything. I'm like, dude, I'm standing right behind you.
That's,
like, I heard every word you said. Like,
yep. Well, and a lot of times the ref will give you the question, but not the answer, right? If you get the quick question, they're usually, but it's the second part they give you the penalty for most of the time. So.
Right. Yeah. I think they show the same setup before the breakout even starts on this one.
Yeah, I think this is the one that we shoot it and identify it, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. That was one of the things too. I thought it was the point before that I kind of noticed that I thought maybe you guys could have taken a little more advantage of is when they were only going to break that one way is really maybe pulling a gun from the Dorito side in the blind, you know, to shoot that. Because if you could shoot that guy, even if you lose your guy on that side and you're 2 on none down the other side,
that's
man,
right.
Yep, makes sense to me.
Really good. Yeah, really good space.
Shoot him, you hold the gap, never let the home spread, or force him to go up, which doesn't give him any advantage.
Yeah, see, they don't here. They break 2. But he goes up the gut.
Well, it seemed like against us, some of the teams abandoned playing that Aztec because we shot them enough that they would just run past it and make us guess which spot they were going to.
Yeah, so you guys shoot the outside guy and then shoot I don't know if that was Frank who was on this side. But
yeah,
shoot the back center guy out.
I'm fairly sure that was Nate standing over the tip of the snake because that guy's like shooting deeper into the snake and Nate kind of sneaks one into him.
So on their breakout, who's the eyes on the snake? And
they had a player on here.
But he's not going to see. He cannot see the guy feed. He'll see a flash. You're not going to know if he's going to the snake or if he's going to the corner. And the reason why I make that point,
they didn't have one. And it's multiple times in this match they didn't have one.
Right. So here's my point. So, and then they send this guy up to the center. He's looking Dorito way.
Yep.
And you're in the snake coming down here doing work. And it's just, to me, that was that there's glaring issue in the play call there.
I definitely feel at times, sometimes some of that stuff, not speaking to their situation, comes from the players like having so much input that you like shift the whole meta where you lose the big picture a little bit, right? You get a lot of guys that go, hey, if we do this one thing or this one thing, we have an advantage, and you kind of piece it together. And then you may miss one of the big themes of the field, or like not having that set of eyes, or to be fair, as we talked about earlier, sometimes just plan not to see it. They know we're going to try to go there, right? It's not a surprise when someone goes to the snake.
Snake's always hot, right?
Yeah.
And,
like we're,
I like how your guys recognize the situation very quickly, right? They recognize, hey, I didn't see anyone go this wide. And it's just, and then you shoot the first home guy. So, and then it was just, let's go. And it was like, you recognize that and went. So good stuff. Good stuff.
Yep. And again, I think that's the whole idea, right? Is just this like style of play that allows you to be dynamic. When you have big advantages, you lock them in and you go and win when you should. And then being able to steal a couple games when you're down points or when you want to go play fast down bodies, that kind of stuff. I think that is more of the going for it mentality of like, hey, we created this massive advantage, you go for it. And then, or we're way down and you're willing to kind of take the chances to go win the game. And you don't just like sit there and let it happen to you, No,
but you're spot on though, right? Sometimes, maybe there's an audible made on the box, right? And the coach is saying, hey, we need to make sure that we have eyes on here, or at least, and then someone makes an audible, what have you. But I like how your guys adjusted well to that. Seabrook Smith, someday it's coming. We want to do the magic.
I can do it.
Oh, you can.
I
You
can
can
do it right
do it.
now. Yeah,
You can do it right now.
If there's something you want me to show, Brooks, just ask.
We'll
I'll show
do
it
that.
to you.
Just,
I can literally stop the video and draw all over it if you want. You just got to tell me what you want to see.
Mr. Blute's in the chat.
Yeah, and Joey said that might be why they took Jansen from me. That's exactly why they took Jansen from me, for sure. And we had Chris on the show, and congratulations to him, because I do think he'll be very helpful with that group.
All right, it is tied. How much was on the clock at this point? I guess we're going to find out.
Not a lot. $50 seconds.
50 seconds, yeah.
Well, I feel like this moment in time in games is really how you can judge your players' decision making based on the idea of like, we get one or they don't, and can we adapt to that in these last seconds of the game of going fast when we think we have an advantage, or being able to kind of lock in that defensive positioning if things are not going to go well for us. So
sorry, I'm not sure what's happening.
definitely watching this back, we kind of went to defensive mode and they were able to play a little more aggressive, but it basically just came down to bodies where it was kind of that one-on-one at the end and essentially not enough time, energy, whatever to close it out. So.
Yeah, I thought Borromeo did a great job there too, making sure he got that trade.
Yeah,
100%.
Well, and he's actually been like, one of the things about him is, he's a super veteran player. He's been getting healthier and being able to play more for us, which has also been a big part of our success. Like being a guy who can kind of play any spot. He can play front snake when we need him to, and him being able to get more spins and be more active for us has been a big part of our kind of swing.
Anyone who's not watched this set with Iron Man Kings and you guys and Revo, you go watch this whole set. It's so good. Like, I ended up just watching the whole thing. So
sometimes when you watch it, you remind yourself like paintball can be exciting, right? We get some of those slow matches and like, wait a minute, some of this slow stuff is not quite as entertaining. But then some guys like a pitcher's duel too, right? Where it's two teams doing smart things and kind of slugging it out.
I think that's something that's really helped with the MLPB and NXL a lot of the Chiron stuff that's going on and the graphics that are happening in the mid game where it shows which direction the guns are pointed and et cetera, and where they are on the field. And that overhead view is just fantastic. So, that's helping teach the masses a little bit, I think.
Well, I definitely think that's like the next level for our industry, right? Is like, how do we get kind of this mass understanding to create more fans? Like my background started with me watching my brother play tournaments, and my interest really grew from figuring out what was going on, keeping track of scores, all that stuff. So,
right. All right. It's for all the marbles.
Going into the overtime point.
Overtime point. So before we get to that, what are you telling your guys? What are we saying here?
I think it's just play our game. Like, I think we have a really good feel for how we want to play it. I think we have a good understanding of what our proper pacing is to win, right? And I think a lot of it really just becomes play our style, and then when it's time, go win the game, right? I don't think there's anything too complicated about the messaging, other than a few nuanced details and adjustments from kind of coaching and players from things that we've seen, which is pretty standard and traditional. But I think it's more just we know what we want to do. We already know our reads. Just go play, have fun.
So you basically had a base play that you augmented with an audible on the box.
I think that's basically our style of play, generally speaking, anyway, right? Is that, we have a pretty good understanding of the read and reacts of which all the guys should be doing. We want to instill the philosophy that they know when to do it properly, so that if you get that big advantage, we can just go win the game. But I think really in these kind of situations, it's more based on, where can we create an advantage by trying to shoot someone off the break? How do we get that gun that way? And then a lot of times we leave it to the players on the box to make those reads at 1 or 2 seconds. Are you seeing 2 heads down or 1 head down? That kind of thing, so that we can try to create that advantage without the coaches trying to predict exactly what's going to happen without all the information, right? Those guys have more information than us before the game starts, because they have that little tick in time right before it's go. So.
Come on.
Live podcasts are so fun. Here we go.
The anticipation's killing me.
That's right.
Well, we have 5 minutes to talk about it. And again, they have the same setup, but they went short.
Right. Yeah, well, I think for us, like we were willing to take the risk on the edge most of the time. We just wanted to mix it up, because as long as you didn't know, whether you were shooting the snake gap or deep, that back center guy had to choose. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right. For those who are listening as opposed to not watching, both teams are in the snake, right? Mikowski's the first out for Revo to get behind his snake player.
Yeah, I thought Cody played really well.
He did. Pacific Northwest proud. Come on, screen. Experiencing technical difficulties. All right, so it's interesting here. So you have the snake brick, in other words, snake 1. You have Miterman, up in that, we'll call it snake 3. It looks like Revo's first to the snake 4 with Mikowski behind him. You've now got out into that baby Dorito. You've got a guy at home, and I think you have a guy in that mini wall, which you are now doubling. The home is now shifted over to double that mini wall.
And they shot a guy off the break. So it's a 5-on-4 right now.
Yeah, these are definitely some of those situations that we're trying to get our guys a little bit more cued in on, like when it's time to get going. There's obviously plenty of time left, but it's essentially a situation now where I think it's time to kind of recognize, like, we have them trapped on the Dorito side. How do we lock in that advantage and then get going? So.
Yeah, this is one of those times where I felt like your guy that went from back center out should have checked off the snake and gone up the middle of the field to hold that Dorito side and then let your snake guys go to work.
Yeah, I think there's two outcomes here too that like kind of crossed my mind in retrospect, in the hindsight's 2020, is I also think even just the simple move of like playing one of those middle wedges just to get to the point of making sure that we kind of lock down their advantage side kind of puts us in a spot to kind of win on their weak side easier without that resistance.
Sure.
So Abel takes
What's up, Archie?
Archie Barnes, baby. Newest member of Baltimore Arsenal. So Meiderman progresses and Abel retreats from the Snake 50 back to the Snake 40.
Yeah, which we got really lucky right here when you see what happens next.
Come on.
Technical difficulty.
Yeah, because I think Cable, yeah, he does. I was going to say, I think
he pulls
Caleb
back
goes
again.
back again. Yeah.
And Nate just can't.
And so Nate is just hunting. Yeah, he's hunting.
Nate's like, hey, he's not there. He's not there. Where is he?
Yeah, well, and when you watch it in real time, like it literally, he gets on, we call it, he immediately goes back, Nate launches, and he's gone. So in real time, it all happened very fast.
Yeah.
And I think you guys you're up one body still, right?
I think so. I think we have a 2-2 spread.
So Nate did not get Abel.
He shot the snake guy, yes. So
Okay, he
snake
did.
came
Well,
off.
then, yes, you are up a body then. That
Yep.
makes it 43. And you have the snake. And, of course, Mikowski's keeping Meiderman honest.
Yep, and we've refilled the snake corner. So this is probably that moment where, you know, in a perfect theory, Mark works down and you try to pinch out that Dorito corner.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is one of the points I was talking about where the tempo needed to change, right? Like as soon as Nate made his move, that's when it's time for Mark to get on his horse, go get on their side of the field, take advantage of that chaos really quickly. And I get it's tough too when you're a young, pro player and you're just trying to keep it together in a big overtime point at the World Cup. But like to me, he should have come right here as soon as that run through happened. And don't miss that shot.
Well, I think that's the next progression for our group, right? Between some of our we'll say up and comers, between Mark, Alec, some of those guys, like it's really just about them taking that next step for us and being able to be that guy that can go defense to offense immediately when the situation arises. So for our group, that really is the next pace.
Meiderman just got picked up. Looked like he ate some paint there.
Mm-hmm.
He did.
I think here it goes pretty crazy, and our snake corner shoots that guy. And I think it comes down to a one-on-one where they just don't find each other.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, there's 20 seconds left. Now, Chaos just launched, so Meiderman gets shot crossfield. Baltimore Revo's launches D-side, takes a pawn off the board, gets shot up. So now it's a one-on-one. And I believe they're both snake way. They're both on the snake side, correct?
No, Cody Mikowski's over in that Dorito side wedge.
Okay, so he moved over. Okay.
Yeah, he's in the mini wall in the back.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think at that point, it's basically the two anchors for each team just establishing, hey, things have gone crazy. This can't go bad. Right. I think that's how that finally plays out. So.
And so now we go to one-on-ones.
Yeah, and it's exciting. Shout out to Alec Holland for really kind of stepping up to the plate here. Like he's one of the guys who over the last handful of years has been at DBS with me pretty much every Thursday, practicing, doing drills, playing one-on-ones, kind of doing as much of the skill work as he can. And he came in the pits and was like, hey, I want this one. So it's just, he was ready to go, ready to roll, kind of made the decision easy.
That was going to be my question. Do you, as a coach, do you already have people predetermined as when you head to the event on what order, who's going to go first? Or do you have that kind of established? Then you get to the event, you see who's kind of playing the field well.
Yeah, I think for us, like we do one-on-ones at every practice. We actually have a black hormesis coin we pass around that essentially the winner of our one-on-one practice gets to carry with them. And we have a pretty good feel for who's going to play. But I think really it comes down to, like all sports, the hot hand, who's the most tuned in that day, like who's ready to play. And that's the guy that goes and plays for us. Like, I don't think it's ever necessarily hey, it's this guy every time. I think it's more based on, you have some hierarchy predetermined, but you're always going to basically play to the situation and play to, the individual player at the time, right? Because all these guys kind of go through their own waves of, how they're doing, how they're playing, how they're feeling, all that stuff. So you're just looking for the guy who's the most tuned in, ready to go. And if someone comes in and says, hey, I deserve this and I want this, like, why wouldn't you send them out there?
I like it. I'll base plays
about took it
around
right
players.
Out of your hand.
Yeah. Players will come into the pit and say, hey, coach, I noticed this, blah, blah, blah. I want to try this now. And they're so confident, right? And you're like, okay, I'll build something around it. And you build something around it. You got to
as coaches, like, we want guys that understand what's going on and have ideas, right? Like, I don't think most coaches want someone who like can't help you figure out all the options, right? And then as coaches, it's our job to help, establish value in these options and when we choose to use them, So.
Right. That the player that says, just tell me what to do.
Yeah. It can be nice. It's really nice sometimes, with the right guys, but
sure.
Probably not the highest outcome every time.
No. And who did Revo send out? Do you remember?
Is it Weaver, I believe?
Weaver. Good choice.
Yeah. Elliot Weaver.
Who has about a 22-inch vertical.
Tall.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Joey. They're both doing the jump thing.
This is where he catches him. I think he comes back right-handed and he catches him right here.
He's about to go out left. He decides not to go left, and boom, you saw it. Plain as day.
Yep.
He was about to go left, and he second-guessed himself and went out right and right into the ball.
Yeah, and it's a big moment for Alec. I'm so happy for him. Like, he got picked up kind of in a tough situation where Uprising really needed guys. They didn't really have any depth at that moment. This was actually 2 seasons ago. And he was able to kind of come in and play a lot of paintball in his first rookie season that most guys don't get a chance to. And it's really paying dividends for us now, right? Getting all those spins kind of in a down year has really kind of helped turn him into the player that he's become for us, which is kind of one of our staple guys that we lean on to just be alive back there and shoot people off the break. So.
Well, his long ball paid off on that one, that's for sure.
Yeah, been practicing, so got a heck of a shot.
Excellent. Great match. Great match. All right.
Well, I think one of the things I'll add to with the kind of group of guys is there's a resiliency building. So, as you start to live through some of these situations and you don't win with that advantage before the overtime point and, kind of miss some of the mark on some of this stuff, our group's getting better at letting it go, right? And just going, hey, here's the information we need to take from this. Let's go to the next thing, right? What do we need from this? Go to the next thing. Kind of forget about it, right? So that's definitely one of the things I think that's kind of slowly building up. And again, with all the guys, just takes, one step at a time, one better outcome, kind of knowing we can do it and do that. So
that's right. I mean, you can either let it drag you down or you can sit there and grow from it and move on. And I agree with Joey here. I'm excited to see what Uprising is going to do in 2025. I'm really excited about it. So.
Me too. I can't wait. Well, and like from the background perspective, there's nothing better than doing paintball with your friends, right? I've done this with a few different groups of people, and for as much as I love our community and can't thank them enough for keeping me involved and giving me opportunities to coach and work with all the different teams, there's nothing like living life with like your best friends, right? And being able to kind of do it with a group of people you care about, have grown with, seeing these guys kind of come to the fruition of who they can be, watching Nate grow into a leader, seeing Tyler really kind of step into this like coaching role and like grow into the person that can really manage it and do it all. it's pretty impressive. So
No.
really happy to be here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Any sponsors you'd like to thank while you got the opportunity?
First one's Finlay Hats. Like, can't do it without them. Jimmy has obviously kind of taken the reins of this whole thing and really kind of got our organizational structure set up where we at least have a little bit of support and stability. They've really kind of gone out of their way to make sure that we can keep this thing rolling, because at its core, it really is, 5 or 6 friends that have been holding on, and Jimmy coming in, being able to kind of give us some help and keep it rolling has been everything. The second one's obviously Doodlebug Sports, DBS, like my family's paintball company. The guys all grew up at our indoor park. Well, most of the local guys did, playing there, practicing indoor every Monday, every Sunday. And then DLX, because Luxes are, obviously like the best guns on the market. So the idea that we get to use great equipment is also part of that. So,
and if you didn't know what DBS stood for, you do now.
Yeah, Doodlebug Sports. Yep, yeah. That's what it means. So, yeah,
I didn't know that.
So give me your grade.
Oh, you locked up there for a minute.
Yeah.
You want to pitch that question again? You locked up a little bit there.
Yeah, give me your grade for your team's performance in 2024.
I think under the context of we knew there was a lot of growing to do and some remanufacturing of systems, like I would probably say by the end of the year, B+. Obviously getting better outcomes was, probably the goal. I feel like by the end of the year, though, we were where we expected to be at the beginning. It just took a little more time to get there than we anticipated, but there was a lot of moving pieces and roster, all the stuff that kind of goes. But I would say progressively, like we probably went from a beginning of the year D, we weren't having terrible outcomes, but we weren't getting what we wanted to. And it was a lot of shooting ourselves in the foot and that kind of stuff, to, progressively one tier higher every event until the last 2, where I think we kind of showed up and showed that we can play with everybody and have a good chance to go, take down some good teams on Sundays. So
totally. Yeah. And a World Cup took down, a great team right off the bat.
Yep. So
impressive.
B+,
Very impressive
is the answer.
Yeah. Where do you see your team finishing in 2025?
I would say like a simple goal for us would be consistent top 8 every event. I think that's probably our first idea, right? Playing out of that first round on Sundays consistently, making sure that when we run into some of those harder teams, we can take them down without it being kind of a big hiccup. I think that's kind of our starting point. I also kind of have these expectations of the template we've set for ourselves the last 2 events is very, very, very obtainable moving forward. Obviously, the pro bracket is the pro bracket. It's disgustingly good at times. You're going to play 3 or 4 hard matches at some events, but just this consistent idea of like the consistency of being in that top 8 and then being able to get a stab at winning some events, right? Whether it's, one top 4 or multiple, but just this idea of being there at the end so that you have a puncher's chance to win tournaments, I think is our next growth period. And then it's growing into a dominant contender, but we have steps along the way. So,
yeah. Well, I will tell you what, in some team's going to pull Tontons as a 5th tier, and someone's going to pull Uprising as a 4th tier. And that's going to suck.
Yep. So I'm aware of how that goes, but I think that's our realistic expectations for where we're at. And again, I think it's one of those things where it's just getting to a point where our guys have the legs under them. So Sunday comes around, we're ready to go win a tournament and play all 4 matches and, keep it rolling. So
for you listeners at home, that was a compliment. I was basically saying that a 5th tier, 4th tier team named Tontons or Uprising would suck to draw as your 4th or 5th tier team. Just wanted to clarify that real quick.
Yep. No, that's fair. Well, and I think one of our meshings at World Cup, and Tyler's really good at this, was it's the bracket of death because of us, right? That's why we're playing in the bracket of death, is because we are that. So
that's the right attitude.
Their problem to deal with, and we get to kind of embody that and show it on the field, right? So
that's right. That's the right attitude, man. I love it.
So.
And you guys did make it the bracket of death.
Yeah.
Because you played really well.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite drill?
Favorite drill? Well, first of all, when it's not pouring down rain and dark at 4 o'clock, I do drills every single Thursday with the DBS community. So if you're Northwest Pacific, let me know. Every Thursday afternoon, we do drills at DBS with the members. Honestly, my favorite drill, I think, is as simple as what we call the jousting drill. We have one insert runner shooting back at a back center pulling up and shooting for a wide guy, and just being able to quickly kind of tune in those break shots from both perspectives. I think is probably my favorite. Part of it also leans on that, it's the position at which I would like to play is more of a communicator back position. So I've always leaned on those drills to be some of my favorite. And then outside of that, I think my favorite drills to do as teams is going to be some of the 2-on-5, 3-on-5 closing offense defense drills, because I think a lot of that is being able to kind of set that template of, hey, when does the favor switch to us? When do we go from defense to offense? You know, can we also put the clamps on when we have the advantage and just make sure we can choke people out? I think those are probably my favorite team drills. So,
yeah,
I can dig it.
Important.
I can dig it.
Very cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. A quick clarification though, real quick. So, you have a runner and a gunner, and that's what you call the jousting drill.
So the way that I do it, it's 2 on both sides. You set up one starting cone, or it's like right on the edge of one box, so it's a little bit tight. You essentially have one insert bunker, like that Aztec at World Cup would be a great distance. It's pretty easy to shoot if it's open, but the fast guys will make it sometimes. Essentially, you have one guy who pulls his gun up, goes out wide, shoots back at the back center, and then gets his first engagement with his mirror. And then a back center that can pull up, shoot for the wide guy. And then sometimes we add in the quick wrap back at the other back center to just make sure we're staying on our second engagements and stuff. But it's
so first engagement, then the drill stops, and then we reset.
Yep, exactly. And then a lot of times when we do it, we run it in a big circle. So you basically go twice in a row, run down to the other side, go twice in a row, run down to the other side. So it's more of a cardio based.
So
you're kind of running in a big circle the whole time. I always kind of joke, if I can't get the guys to show up in great shape, we'll just do more steps. You know, just basically running circles the whole time while we do drills. So, yeah,
I love it. I love it. Excellent.
Smart.
Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah.
Buddy, thank you so much for giving us your time this evening. We really appreciate you, and really excited to see kind of what the next chapter of the story that you guys are currently writing looks like. It's been very intriguing, interesting over the last, for the last 2 events, right? You guys have shown up and played really well, and it's made the story more fun, right? And I know for you guys for sure, because you're writing it, right? It's definitely more fun to write a story with some wins in it, and not just wins, but wins over some really good teams, putting yourselves into positions to play on Sunday. And I agree with Joey. I think you guys are going to be really good in 2025. I think the mix-up in the league is great for a team like you guys, who has stayed really consistent with your roster. The messaging is the same. Everybody's already bought in. I think it's really, really good.
Yeah. Yep. I'm really excited about it. I appreciate you guys having me, and I'm really stoked for the continuity we have. I think that's kind of the base that we built this year. You know, I don't think what we've seen is our final form. I definitely think that we have a lot more to come, and, you know, a little bit of improvement from each individual organization from top to bottom, owners, coach, pit staff, you know, a little bit of improvement helps us kind of get that next tier. And then it's just one bite at a time from there. So appreciate you guys having me, and it's been fun to talk. So.
Excellent. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
Thanks,
take care.
guys. That was fun. That was fun.
Man. Intelligent guy.
Smart guy. It's like I always say, right? You know, 3 heads better than 1, recognizing that, hey, I bring this skill set. This is what I'm really good at. I'm going to focus on this, and I'm going to do everything I can to bring that element of myself to the team. And then everybody else comes in and fills the spaces. So,
but I think it's interesting too, now that we've had him and Tyler on the show, to see how kind of yin and yang they are.
Very,
you know, Tyler's, Tyler, not as well spoken for sure. But like has that smash mouth mentality, right?
Yeah. I see now. I know what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah. Dusty seems to be a little bit more, sorry, I keep freezing. I'm not sure exactly what's creating that. Yeah. I think it's because the memory in StreamYard is full.
Probably.
So, yeah. I need to erase some of that. Well, it's a good time, since I'm frozen. It's a good time to end the show.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching this episode of the Coaches Show. Thank you to Coach Dusty Cort for joining us tonight, Major League Paintball, for all the support of the show. Darren Cessna, Alex Sorensen, and Tom. Thank you to Major League Paintball Plus for use of the video. If you want to improve your game, possibly play for Team USA, get the best knowledge in paintball at bkipaintball.com. Check out the Combine coming up. Also, the Combine Coaches Clinic. The link to sign up is in the description of the show, so make sure to click that if you would like to participate. You can also click the link to sign up for the Combine. If you're looking for new gear in 2025, check out Max Sportswear and everything they have to offer. jerseys, pants, tech tees, hats, etc. Congratulations to the end of the year for Seattle Uprising. Again, really excited to see where that story goes. FYI, we will not be doing a show for the rest of the year. This is our last show for 2024. So we will see you guys in January 2025 with Mike Bianca. I'm Ryan Gray. As always, be responsible.